crise imobiliária que se alastrou dos Estados Unidos para o mundo tem sido debelada em seus sintomas, mas o risco de agravamento da doença permanece. Ao menos para este ponto, convergem as opiniões de teóricos das mais variadas tendências, debruçados sobre as causas e efeitos dos males econômicos do mercado nos dias atuais. Mas alguns acreditam que não há mais remédio. O cientista político norte-americano Immanuel, por exemplo, entende que o mundo está diante de um doente terminal. O velho professor da Universidade de Yale e autor do Sistema Mundial Moderno, uma referência no mundo acadêmico em todo o mundo, acha que chegamos a um ponto de esgotamento da acumulação do capital e entramos numa era caótica, de incerteza, porque o sistema atual será forçosamente substituído por um outro que não sabemos qual é e, portanto, não sabemos se será melhor ou pior. Será, segundo ele, certamente pós-norte-americano. Este foi o tema da conferência de Immanuel Wallerstein em Porto Alegre, no ciclo Fronteiras do Pensamento. É sobre ele que nos fala hoje, nesta entrevista do Milênio.
Professor, help us to understand better these recent world financial crises under the lights of your world systems theory, which foresees scary times within the next 50 years. How do you see this crisis in this context, or more precisely in the context of the end of the accumulation of capital, which you think we are closer to get to?
Well, you can analyze what is going on in the world financial markets in several different ways. One, it's quite normal in the history of capitalism to have moments when things are going badly and there is a recession or a depression or a loss in profit and so on. So the whole process of capitalism historically has been a cyclical one, and there have been moments when it goes up and moments when it goes down. That's absolutely normal. On the other hand, we have a particular situation right now linked to the decline of the United States, in which one of its last principal strengths is the fact that the dollar still is the sole reserve currency of the world, which means that the United States government is the only government that doesn't have to worry about debt. It simply prints more money whenever it wishes to print more money, and nothing can be done about it. In addition, the United States debt at the moment is a peculiar kind of debt because it is basically financed by a few countries, principally China, then to some extent Korea, India, Norway, who buy U.S. Treasury bonds. And the main reason they buy it is partly it's a good place to put your money because the interest rates are quite good, but partly they want to sustain U.S. purchasing power. China in particular wants to sustain U.S. purchasing power so they can buy Chinese goods. Now, then there's still another context in which you can put this, which is that we are living, in my view, a major transition from the existing capitalist world economy to some other system whose name we do not yet know and whose realities we cannot foresee. And the major element in this transition is its volatility. It's a chaotic situation. Things go up, things go down very fast, it's very violent, very uncertain, and so it's extremely difficult for anyone to predict on a short-run basis what's going to happen.
But the reason why I made you this question is because some specialists have named August 9, when central banks had to intervene in the market to restore at least a semblance of stability, and they had to do it again. They named it the Debtonation Day, with the word debt, which means the end of deregulation, privatization of finance, in that marks the globalization era. Do you agree with them?
Well, I agree that so-called globalization and the openness of financial markets is very much in question at the moment. One of the things that's been discussed in the press lately is the growing attitude of major governments elsewhere in the world, in Western Europe, in Japan, and so forth, to say, well, these decisions on what the U.S. does should not be made by the United States alone, because it has too much impact. It's too strong a force in the world economy, and we ought to have some say in it. And now, that's a terribly new concept. Because they're in effect saying the U.S. has to be controlled by other countries. Well, you know that the International Monetary Fund controls governments all over the world. The only government it doesn't touch is the United States. So it's now a question of whether there's going to be some governmental interventions by other governments vis-a-vis the United States government. And in general, yes, you're right. There is already a move to much more governmental control of financial markets.
Yeah, the meltdown had to rely on the state.
Yes. So, of course, it's always been a myth that the financial markets are entirely free at any moment of the states. They don't really even want to be free. You see, capitalism works on the premise that government action is bad, except when it's good for me. It's bad when it's good for somebody else, but it's good when it's good for me. So capitalism has a very hypocritical language about the market. They don't really believe in the market capitalists, right? In fact, the market is in general bad for capitalism.
But do you believe we are getting into a lengthy and waterless depression?
Well, I think that may well happen. That's first of all. And secondly, we are certainly, the last 20 or 30 years have been a relatively free trade, free market-oriented period. We are now into the beginnings of a major protectionist era. Mm-hmm. And the United States is and will be very protectionist. Western Europe is and will be very protectionist. Japan, and indeed even China, will be very protectionist. And we're going to see enormous protectionist barriers all over the place. And frankly, the word globalization will disappear from the vocabulary of journalists, of scholars, and of politicians within 5 years. Yes, it will be a historic memory that once upon a time there were people who talked about something called globalization.